Hello and welcome to our third lesson of Easy IELTS. In today's lesson, we are going to move away from the line graph and instead focus on the pie chart. Unlike the line graph, which usually shows total values, the pie chart is used to show percentages. This will affect our writing, but far less than you might think. Have a look at today's example. Now the three pie charts you see here compare the water usage for three different areas: San Diego County, California, and then worldwide. And for each area it compares the usage for residential, industry and agriculture. For our text, this will allow us to either focus on the area and compare those, or we can focus on the sector in which the water is used. Like in our lessons before, do remind yourself of the structure in which you will write the text. I repeat this a lot, but it very much makes a difference between a good grade or a bad grade or even failure. So to shortly remind ourselves, the four parts of our text are the introduction, the overview, and then our two detailed paragraphs. Like previously with the line graph, the introduction will simply rephrase the description. The overview will yet again name the two main features that you can see in your charts. The two detailed paragraphs will then finish your text. In those, you should use 4 to 5 sentences and quite a few numbers. Let's get started with writing our introduction. As before, we will first look at the description of the charts, and then use synonyms or simply rephrase certain parts. This way, the topic of the graphs and the text can be conveyed convincingly without repeating the description itself. You might remember from our first lesson that we could rewrite the production of X into the amount of X produced. Now the same trick can be used here. Only this time we will have the word use or usage. So let's have a look at the top right corner. Here you can find a few examples how to replace water usage. However, you will also find the word consumption there. Often the words usage and consumption can replace each other, but not always. So be wary of that. As in our previous lessons, by using synonyms, generalizations and specifications, I rephrased the sentence. And if you want to look at the example, just pause the video for a second. We have completed our introduction. Now we're going to write the overview. As before, we can use many of the tricks we used for the line graph. For example, to find out the two main features that we should mention in the overview, in the line graph we decided to have a look at the smallest and highest values. That trick also works here. Now because we have three charts, we can't use the highest and lowest value for every chart. However, by combining several of the charts who have the highest value in the same sector, we are able to maintain our structure of two main features. In our example, San Diego County and California both use water the most for residential purposes, so we use that for our first main feature. For the second main feature, I have chosen to use the highest value worldwide, which is in the agricultural sector. Once decided which are my two main features, I then write down the overview. As previously, I used the word overall to start it off. By doing so, I clearly indicate the overview in the finished text. Now I also used by contrast for the second sentence. In this case, it is used to indicate the vast difference in water use between San Diego County and California and the world. Next, after our overview, come the detailed paragraphs. Now before we can write them or find even notes for them, we're going to have to choose how to divide those up into the two parts, body 1 and body 2. But what is a good division if you have 3 pie charts as we have today? Generally speaking, you have 2 options. Option 1 is to look at every chart individually and then compare how they are built up. Now the second option, and the option I have chosen for today, is to look at the different sections that make up the charts and then compare to how much space they take up in every chart. So what is the difference that makes, for example? If I would have chosen option 1, I would now start to compare how California and the world use the water differently. However, I have chosen option 2, and in option 2, I focus on each sector, for example industry, and then compare how much they make up of every chart. To go with our example, I would note that the industry sector uses a similar amount of water everywhere, whilst the division of the text will impact its focus, and you should make a very clear decision on it. Don't overthink it. Instead, make sure that you have your notes ready for body 1 and body 2. As previously with the line graph, your notes can be easily found if you focus on the maximum and minimum values shown in the chart, or at stark contrasts. For instance, the difference in water usage in the residential sector between San Diego and the world. But do pause the video for a second to have a closer look at my notes. Before we move on to the next slide, have a look at the lower left corner. There you find 3 vocabularies that you can use when describing percentages: account for, make up, or take up. The decision on what to write in each paragraph has been made, and we have made the notes accordingly. So now we have to write the paragraph itself. Before we write our first paragraph, let's have a short look at our notes. As previously mentioned, my first paragraph is going to focus on the sectors with the highest values. So for San Diego and California, that would be residential, but for the world, that is the agricultural sector. My notes, which you can see in the top right corner, reflect that decision. For both sectors, I have firstly noted in which chart they take up the highest value, and then mentioned the other charts. So for example, both for San Diego and California, the residential sector takes up the highest value with 60 and 39%. Worldwide, however, it is only 8%. In these notes, you can already find the first indicator of your sentence structure for the text. To make this a little clearer, I have written down my notes into simplified sentences, as you can see in the middle of the slide. Still divided up into the 2 sectors of residential and agricultural water usage, I have written down how my sentences will be structured for the text. As you can see, for the residential sector, I've decided to firstly mention San Diego and California, and then how much water is used worldwide for the residential sector. I have done so equally for the agricultural sector, where firstly I will mention the worldwide water usage, and then I will focus on California and San Diego in comparison. If you compare those simplified sentences with the final paragraph below, you can see that the structure absolutely remains the same. The only thing that does change is, of course, that the final paragraph is written out in a much nicer manner. The word respectively, for example, indicates which value belongs to which part, so that 60% belongs to San Diego and 39% to California. To combine the 2 different parts of residential and agricultural sector, I have chosen the phrase of "the opposite trend can be seen." I use this phrase specifically here because the water usage for San Diego and California maximizes for the residential sector while minimizes worldwide. Now the exact opposite can be seen for the agricultural sector, which is maximized for worldwide and the lowest for San Diego and California. So there we have it, our first paragraph is done. In my second paragraph, I will only focus on the industrial sector, which at first glance may seem very little. But as long as you have clear structures for every paragraph and it is clear where the focus lies, a paragraph can be a little shorter as long as the complete text has the overall required length. The method how to write paragraph 2 is the same as how to write paragraph 1. You use your notes and then write a few simple sentences to find your sentence structure, and then finish the paragraph by writing them out properly. In my example, that included to use the phrase turning to the remaining to indicate that I now moved on to a different paragraph talking about other sectors. The 4 parts of your text are completed and written down. All that is left for you to do now is read through it to find your mistakes. And then you're done, your final text. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson and that you found something interesting, and I'll see you next time. Bye.